Hello students, welcome back to our revision with MCQ environment series. So as always, we'll be discussing 10 questions on environment. So let's begin with the first question for today. Consider the following: underground aquifers, peatlands, coral reefs, rice paddies and salt pans. How many of the above are included within the Ramsar definition of wetlands? A, only 2, B, only 3, C, only 4 or D, all the 5. Please take a few seconds, attempt this question and then we'll discuss the explanation. Okay, so here we are talking about the Ramsar Convention on the protection of wetlands. So what are wetlands? Wetlands are like these transition zones between a terrestrial ecosystem and an aquatic ecosystem. They're very ecologically sensitive zones and they have to be protected. And for that we have the Ramsar Convention that was signed in 1971 at Ramsar in Iran. Now this is a very special type of conservation. It actually focuses on all types of wetlands, conservation and a sustainable judicious use of all types of wetlands, like human wetlands, human-made wetlands and also natural wetlands. So it has a very broad definition and not a narrow definition. So we have underground aquifers protected, yes. Peatlands, yes. Coral reefs, yes. Rice paddies, yes, even though human-made. Salt pans, yes. So all these shallow areas from where the water is evaporated and only salt is left behind. So all these areas basically, whether they are human-made, whether they are naturally existing, they are protected under the wetland conservation of Ramsar. Okay, so the correct answer over here would be option D, all the 5. So you have the Telegram link. This PDF is going to be uploaded on our Telegram channel. You can go ahead and download it from there. For now, let us just see that Ramsar Convention is the first modern international treaty dedicated to the conservation and wise use of wetlands. So it was signed in 1971 and it adopts a very broad and inclusive definition of wetlands. So it has natural and human-made ecosystems. You have all these examples listed over here. Okay, moving on to the second question. Consider the following statements regarding the Global Tiger Forum. 1. It is the only intergovernmental international body exclusively dedicated to tiger conservation. 2. All the 13 tiger range countries are members of the forum. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A, 1 only, B, 2 only, C, both 1 and 2 or D, neither 1 nor 2. Please attempt this question. Okay, so here we are talking about the Global Tiger Forum. Global Tiger Forum is actually an international and it is an international framework, an international forum which is dedicated for the conservation of tigers. And this initiative, it was led by India. So the secretariat is also in New Delhi and we do not have all the 13 tiger countries as a member of this forum. So the first statement which says that it is the only intergovernmental international body exclusively dedicated to tiger conservation. Yes, this is true. Somewhere in 92-93, the creation of this forum happened and the secretariat is in New Delhi. Okay, and the second statement says that all the 13 range countries, all the 13 tiger range countries are members of the forum. No. So this statement is not correct and it is also an extreme statement. So whenever you look at an extreme statement, you should get alert. And if you know it for sure, in that case, attempt the question. So all the 13 tiger range countries are not a part of it. Some tiger range countries are a part of it. Some tiger range countries are not a part of it. And some non-tiger range countries are also a part of this forum. So this statement is incorrect and the first statement is correct. So the correct answer would be option A, 1 only. So this is the only intergovernmental international organization dedicated exclusively to global tiger conservation, comprising willing member countries. Okay. Headquarters located in New Delhi, India. It was established following the recommendations of an international symposium on tiger conservation which was held in New Delhi. So of the 13 tiger range countries, we have 7 that are members and those are Bangladesh, Bhutan, Cambodia, India, Myanmar, Nepal and Vietnam. And we also have some non-tiger range countries like the UK, United Kingdom, to be a part of this forum. Okay. Moving on to the third question. Consider the following statements. Statement 1. The Green Climate Fund gives equal priority to climate mitigation and adaptation while supporting developing countries under the Paris Agreement. Statement 2. The GCF is mandated to allocate 50% of its resources to mitigation and 50% to adaptation in grant equivalent terms. Statement 3. At least half of the GCF's adaptation resources are required to be invested in the most climate vulnerable countries. Which of the following is correct in respect of the above statements? A. Both statement 2 and statement 3 are correct, and both of them explain statement 1. B. Both statement 2 and statement 3 are correct, but only one of them explains statement 1. C. Only one of the statements 2 and 3 is correct, and that explains statement 1. D. Neither statement 2 nor statement 3 is correct. So please attempt this question. Done? So here we are talking about the Green Climate Fund. The Green Climate Fund, which is like the largest climate finance mechanism that we have. It's the largest climate fund that we have that works under the UNFCCC. Okay, so this was adopted in COP16 at Cancun. So this basically helps the developing countries in their mitigation as well as adaptation measures. Mitigation also, that you have to work on the reduction of emissions so that the pollutants that are being emitted, they are reduced, and the severity of this climate change can actually be tackled, it can be brought down. And adaptation also, that how are you going to deal with the harmful effects of climate change that are existing in the present. So whatever flood management system needs to be built in developing countries, or any drought management system, any drought resistant crops have to be researched, anything of that sort. So adaptation is also taken care of under this fund, and mitigation is also taken care of under this fund. So the first statement says that the Green Climate Fund gives equal priority to climate mitigation and adaptation, yes, while supporting developing countries under the Paris Agreement. Yes, so this statement is correct. It was adopted at COP16, and it also helps the developing countries, the least developed countries, the most vulnerable countries under the Paris Agreement also. So the second statement says that it is mandated to allocate 50% of its resources to mitigation and 50% to adaptation in grant equivalent terms. Correct, because it gives equal priority to both adaptation and mitigation measures. So the fund allocates 50% of its grant to mitigation and 50% of its grant to adaptation. And then statement number 3 says at least half of the GCF's adaptation resources are required to be invested in the most climate vulnerable countries. Yes, this statement is also correct. So 50% of the total GCF is going to adaptation measures, and out of those adaptation measures also, half of that fund is also going to the most vulnerable, most climate vulnerable countries. Like you have SIDS, small island developing states. You have the least developed countries, basically, which are in need of urgent attention because they are going to be the most prone to the harmful effects of climate change. So this is also taken care of by the GCF. So all the 3 statements here are correct, and both these statements are actually explaining statement number 1, because one says that it gives equal priority to mitigation and adaptation, correct, and it also supports developing countries under the Paris Agreement. Yes. So the correct answer over here would be option A. Both statement 2 and statement 3 are correct, and both of them explain statement 1. So it's the central pillar of the Paris Agreement. It's the world's largest climate finance mechanism, and it is mandated to assist developing countries in enhancing and implementing their nationally determined contributions, right? Countries have to send in their NDCs under the Paris Agreement, and whatever help is required by the developing countries and the least developed countries, this mechanism, this fund actually provides them that. Okay? It operates through a network of over 200 accredited entities and delivery partners, which work very closely with developing countries, etc. So we have a lot of partners over here, like international and national commercial banks, multilateral, regional, national development banks, etc. And in terms of resource allocation, when we talk about resource allocation, so 50% has to go in mitigation and 50% has to go in adaptation on a grant equivalent basis. And additionally, at least 50% of the adaptation has to be directed to the most climate vulnerable countries, like you have SIDS and LDCs and the African states, poorest of the poor countries. Then the fund's programming strategy emphasizes the need to scale up both mitigation and adaptation actions while leveraging synergies and minimizing trade-offs between the two to maximize climate impact. Okay, so both the statements are correct and both are explaining statement number 1. Question number 4. With reference to Bharat stage emission norms, which of the following statements is or are correct? 1. BS6 emission norms became mandatory across India in April 2020. 2. Delhi has historically implemented stricter emission norms earlier than the rest of the country due to its persistent air pollution problem. Select the answer using the code given below. A. 1 only, B. 2 only, C. both 1 and 2, or D. neither 1 nor 2. Please attempt this question. Done. So here we are talking about the BS norms, BS6 norms in particular, Bharat stage norms. So what are these emission norms? These norms are actually meant to reduce the emission of the pollutants from these vehicles. Pollutants like your carbon monoxide or nitrogen oxides or anything of any other particulate matter. So all these pollutants, they have to be brought down to a significant level under these different stages that we have of emission. And then we also want to transition more and more towards clean fuel, like the sulfur content should also come down. So what's happening right now is that we transitioned from BS4 to BS6. Straight away from BS4 to BS6, we skipped BS5 to curb pollution even faster, because pollution is happening at a very rapid scale and we have to curb it. Urban pollution is the biggest problem that we face at the moment, so we have to curb that. That's why we skipped BS5 and we immediately moved to BS6 from BS4. Okay, and when we talk about the implementation time, then it became mandatory across India in April 2020. Yes, this statement is correct. So it is applicable since April 2020, and for the first time it was made applicable in Delhi NCR. In Delhi NCR. Because historically Delhi has faced the most amount of air pollution, most amount of vehicular pollution, and that's why all these BS norms, they have first been implemented in Delhi, and after that they have been implemented in across the country, like throughout the country. So Delhi has historically implemented stricter emission norms earlier than the rest of the country due to its persistent air pollution problem. Yes, this statement is also correct. We have a severe urban pollution problem in Delhi NCR. And that is why we see that these BS norms are implemented first in Delhi and then they are implemented throughout the country. And these BS6 norms, they have been made mandatory since April 2020. So some targets have been given, like you have to bring down the nitrogen oxide emission by at least 70% in the diesel vehicles, or you have to reduce the sulfur content to 10 ppm from the earlier 50 ppm. So you do not have to memorize the individual targets, but just to give you an idea, there are certain targets that are given under each emission stage. Okay, and right now we are at BS6. So the correct answer would be both 1 and 2. Option C. Okay, so these norms became mandatory across India in April 2020, and India actually marked a major leap because we moved from BS4 to BS6 right away and we skipped BS5. So we have tightened limits on pollutants like nitrogen oxides, particulate matter, hydrocarbons, carbon monoxide, requiring the use of advanced engine technologies, improved exhaust and cleaner fuels with lower sulfur content. Okay, BS6 was first introduced in Delhi NCR due to severe air pollution concerns and only thereafter extended to the entire country in April 2020. All right. So let's move on to the next question. With reference to the marine protected areas in India, consider the following statements. 1. Marine protected areas include intertidal and subtidal regions along with their associated flora and fauna. 2. Mangroves, coral reefs, seagrass beds and estuaries are among the ecosystems protected under MPAs. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A. 1 only, B. 2 only, C. both 1 and 2, or D. neither 1 nor 2. Please attempt this question first. So here we are talking about the marine protected areas. Marine protected areas. Done. So what are marine protected areas? These are the protected areas in the aquatic ecosystems. Just like on land you have national parks and wildlife sanctuaries, in the aquatic ecosystems we have marine protected areas. And the role of these marine protected areas is to protect the entire or conserve the entire ecosystem. So it will be very broad in its definition, like what kinds of things will be allowed, what kinds of ecosystems will be allowed. So its goal is to protect the entire ecosystem, conserve the entire ecosystems, the species within the flora, within the fauna, within everything of that sort has to be conserved. So MPAs include intertidal and subtidal regions along with their associated flora and fauna. Intertidal region, the region between high tide and low tide. So sometimes it is going to be exposed to water, sometimes it is not going to be exposed to water. And subtidal is always going to be exposed to water. You're always underwater. Okay. So yes, MPAs actually include intertidal areas and subtidal areas, and I just told you that their goal is to conserve the entire ecosystem. So we have to conserve the vegetation, the flora, the fauna, all the species within it. So this statement is correct. And then mangroves, coral reefs, seagrass beds, estuaries are among the ecosystems protected? Yes. It's a very broad definition. All these types of marine ecosystems are protected. They can be designated as marine protected areas wherever required. So this statement is also correct. So the correct answer would be option C, both 1 and 2. Marine protected areas, they are defined by the IUCN and they include intertidal and subtidal regions along with the overlying water and associated flora, fauna and cultural features that are protected by law. So this is a broad definition that ensures the protection of both land-sea interface zones and underwater ecosystems, right? Subtidal also and intertidal also. And they're established to conserve ecologically fragile marine and coastal ecosystems like mangroves, coral reefs, seagrass beds, estuaries and lagoons. So all these types of ecosystems will be protected and all the species, both flora and fauna within it are also going to be protected. So moving on to the next question. With reference to conservation reserves in India, consider the following statements. 1. Conservation reserves are declared by state governments on government-owned land. 2. The declaration of a conservation reserve affects the existing rights of people living within the area. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A. 1 only, B. 2 only, C. Both 1 and 2, or D. Neither 1 nor 2. So please attempt this question first. Done. So here we are talking about the conservation reserves. Conservation reserves, so they are not exactly protected areas in themselves, but these are the areas present outside or around the protected areas. Protected areas like your national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. So conservation reserve is actually a legal term that is being used to designate the area around these protected areas. And they can be anything. So they can be your buffer zones also. They can be any ecological corridor, like any wildlife corridor also. So basically whatever is required to protect the entire landscape, to protect the entire ecosystem around the protected area can be designated as a conservation reserve. So it can be your buffer zone or even your eco corridors. Okay. And they are declared by the state government, yes, under the Wildlife Protection Act. Under the Wildlife Protection Act on government-owned land. So this statement is correct. Now the second statement says that the declaration of a conservation reserve affects the existing rights of people living within the area. So you need to understand that the goal of a conservation reserve is actually to balance the rights of the people who are living in that area and also to balance the conservation of the entire region. So to carry out conservation, also to carry out the protection of the entire region without affecting the rights of the people who are living there. So balance is struck over here and it does not actually affect the rights of the people who are living there. So some kinds of activities are allowed to those people, like no entire human intervention has been prohibited, nothing of that sort happens. So its goal over here is to balance both the things, that the humans living in that region should also not be affected and the conservation should also be carried on as desired. So this statement over here is incorrect. So the correct answer is option A, 1 only. So these are declared by the state governments under the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972 in the areas that are owned by the government. Okay. The primary objective is to conserve landscapes, the entire landscape, seascape, flora, fauna and their habitat. That is why they could be anything. So they can function as your buffer zone or as ecological corridors between national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, and reserved or protected forests, thereby enhancing the landscape level conservation. And this declaration is actually not going to affect the existing rights of people living within the area. So unlike national parks or wildlife sanctuaries, conservation reserves are designed to balance the conservation goals, because what happens in national parks and wildlife sanctuaries, in the core areas, no human activities is allowed. All sorts of activities are restricted. But in conservation reserves, the goal over here is to balance the entire area, to balance the rights of the people who are living in that area and also to carry out conservation. So it is to balance conservation goals with community interests, ensuring that local and community rights remain intact. Okay, so the second statement is not correct. Question 7. With reference to eco-sensitive zones in India, consider the following statements. 1. ESZs are notified under the Wildlife Protection Act 1972 around protected areas, national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. 2. Activities such as rainwater harvesting, organic farming and use of renewable energy are permitted within ESZ. 3. Mining and industrial activities are encouraged within ESZs to promote local economic development. How many of the above statements are correct? A. Only 1, B. Only 2, C. All the 3 or D. None. Please attempt this question. Done? So here we are talking about the ecologically sensitive zones, eco-sensitive zones. These zones are actually areas that are designated around the protected areas, your protected areas, national parks, wildlife sanctuaries or any other protected areas, to regulate any kind of economic activity. So economic activity will be ongoing, but the job of these zones over here is that whenever any area is designated to be an ESZ, the economic activity will be regulated. Only certain types of activities will be permitted and certain will not be permitted at all, because we want to conserve the entire area. It's a fragile landscape, it's a fragile ecosystem, and we want to bring about maximum conservation. We don't want any economic activity to hamper the conservation efforts going on over here. So we are going to permit only sustainable development efforts, and we are not going to allow anything that is going to damage the ecosystem. So ESZs are notified under the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972? No. They are notified under the Environment Protection Act and not the Wildlife Protection Act. But around protected areas, national parks and wildlife sanctuaries, yes. This part is correct, but this part is incorrect. So the entire statement is incorrect. Now, activities such as rainwater harvesting, organic farming and use of renewable energy are permitted within ESZs. Now, do you think they will be permitted? Yes, they will be permitted. Certain activities will be permitted, certain will not be permitted. They are all sustainable practices. We are talking about rainwater harvesting, organic farming, use of renewable energy, permitted. Yes, so that is permitted. Now, mining and industrial activities are encouraged within ESZs to promote local economic development. Now, do you think this will be encouraged? No, this will not be encouraged because it is not sustainable. It is going to damage the ecosystem. It is going to damage the area over there. And these are all fragile ecosystems. These are protected areas. So these activities are not allowed, not permitted. So how many are correct? Only 1. Option A, only 1. Eco-sensitive zones are areas notified by the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change to protect environment around protected areas, national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. And what is the purpose? The purpose is to regulate such activities, economic activities around these fragile ecosystems surrounding the protected areas. So the legal framework is that ESZs are declared under the Environment Protection Act and not the Wildlife Protection Act. Okay, so the first statement is not correct. Now permitted activities will be rainwater harvesting, organic farming, use of renewable energy sources and adoption of green technologies. And prohibited activities will be mining, large-scale industrial operations, construction of major infrastructure projects. These are either prohibited or strictly regulated within ESZs, but definitely not encouraged. Okay, so the third statement is also not correct. Question number 8. Consider the following statements. Statement 1. Biosphere reserves aim to conserve genetic resources, species and ecosystems. Statement 2. Biosphere reserves allow sustainable human activities only in the core area. which of the following is correct in respect of the above statements? A. Statement 1 and statement 2 are correct and statement 2 explains statement 1. B. Both statement 1 and statement 2 are correct but statement 2 does not explain statement 1. C. Statement 1 is correct but statement 2 is not correct. D. Statement 1 is not correct but statement 2 is correct. So please attempt this question. Done? So here we are talking about what? Biosphere reserves. Biosphere reserves. So biosphere reserves are protected areas. These are designated under the Man and Biosphere program of UNESCO. Okay. And their goal is not just conservation. They actually have multiple objectives. So conservation, yes. Then they also have to promote scientific research and development. And then they also have to take care of sustainable development. They also have to promote sustainable development. So conservation of the species, conservation of the entire ecosystem is one objective. Then allowing scientific research or promoting scientific research in certain areas, that is the other objective. And promoting sustainable development activities, that is also another objective. So these biosphere reserves, they serve multiple purposes. So the first statement says that biosphere reserve aims to conserve genetic resources, species and ecosystems. Yes, these are protected areas and they aim to conserve all these things. Then biosphere reserves allows sustainable human activities only in the core area. In the core area. So it allows sustainable human activities? Yes. But in what area? In the core area? No. So if you look at the zonation over here, we have core area, buffer area and transition area. Core, buffer, transition. Now the core of anything, core of any protected area is actually the most protected area. It is the area where you need to have the maximum conservation. Most restrictions are in place in the core region only. Like most of the human activities are prohibited, everything is regulated, maximum restrictions and rules are placed in the core area only. So this does not allow sustainable human activities in the core area. Core area it is not allowed. In buffer area, yes, some regulated activities are allowed, like regulated tourism, regulated research. Even in the core area, some form of, like in very limited quantities, some form of research, scientific research can be allowed with appropriate permissions and licenses, otherwise not allowed. And then in the buffer zone, other things are going to be allowed, regulated tourism will be allowed, sustainable development is going to be allowed, these things will happen. And when you talk about the transition zone, then this is the outermost region. Outermost region, here most of the activities will be allowed. Like the local communities living in those areas, they also need to carry on their daily activities, whatever local farming they have to do, organic farming they have to do, collect forest produce, anything. So these things will be allowed in the transition area, that is the outermost area. So second statement is not correct. So in this, statement 1 is correct, but statement 2 is not correct. Option C. So biosphere reserves are protected areas designated under UNESCO's Man and Biosphere Program 1971, and the objectives are conservation, scientific research and sustainable development. Now we have a core area which is strictly protected. Human activities are highly restricted and only non-destructive research is allowed. With appropriate license, with appropriate regulation, only non-destructive research is allowed. No sustainable developmental activities is allowed in the core area. Then buffer zone, it surrounds the core. So low impact activities like regulated tourism, environmental education and sustainable resource use are permitted. Then we have transition zone, that is the outermost area. Intense human activities and sustainable resource use by local communities are allowed. Alright, moving on to question number 9. Which of the following national parks is unique for being a floating swamp with vegetation that supports rich biodiversity? A. Bhitarkanika National Park. B. Kebul Lamjao National Park. C. Keoladeo Ghana National Park. Or D. Sultanpur National Park. Please attempt this question. So which is the only floating national park that we have in India? It is the Kebul Lamjao National Park in Manipur. Kebul Lamjao National Park in Manipur. And it has these special areas that are called Pumdis. These are swamps. Okay, so these are the swamps, floating swamps, floating areas. And these floating areas are going to have everything. They have vegetation also. They have species that have to be conserved. So these floating swarms are present everywhere in this Kebul Lamjao National Park, which is in Manipur, and they are called fumris. And if we talk about some important species over here, then there is an endangered species, the Sangai deer. So the endangered Sangai deer or brow antlered deer, waterfowl and numerous aquatic species, they have to be protected. Endangered is the Sangai deer. So Kebul Lamjao National Park is unique in the world for being the only floating national park. It is located on the Loktak Lake. Loktak Lake, which is famous for fumris, floating masses of vegetation, soil and organic matter, and it's present in Manipur. Okay, Bhitarkanika National Park, it is known for its mangroves. Keladeo National Park, this is famous for migratory birds and wetlands in Rajasthan. And Sultanpur National Park in Haryana, it is famous for bird watching, mainly migratory birds. Alright, moving on to the last question for today. The Union Environment Ministry has recently approved the transfer of 8 tigers from the Tadoba, Andhari and Pench reserves to which of the following tiger reserves? A. Sahyadri Tiger Reserve, B. Baksa Tiger Reserve, C. Nagarhole Tiger Reserve, or D. Manas Tiger Reserve. So please attempt this question. So very recently this has been approved for the Sahyadri Tiger Reserve. Tigers from Tadoba and Pench are going to be moving to the Sahyadri Tiger Reserve because this is an ideal habitat. This tiger reserve in the Western Ghats, that actually is an ideal habitat for tigers, and right now it has very low number of tigers. Not a lot of tigers are present here. But when we talk about Tadoba and Pench tiger reserves, here we have already reached the carrying capacity of these reserves. There is an overpopulation of tigers. So a lot of tigers are already present, and that's why we need to relocate them, and this is an ideal spot over here because it's ideal. It provides all sorts of like the ideal habitat for tigers, and right now very limited number of tigers are present in this reserve. So it has been approved for the Sahyadri Tiger Reserve. So it's located in the northwestern Ghats of Maharashtra, and it has been selected to receive 8 tigers translocated from Tadoba and Pench tiger reserves. So it is going to revive tiger population in STR and strengthen ecological balance in northern western Ghats. Okay, and this is the significance. Now this was all for the discussion for today. We'll look at a practice question. Consider the following statements regarding the International Big Cat Alliance. 1. It is a treaty-based intergovernmental organization with its headquarters in India. 2. It aims at the conservation of 5 major cat species including tiger, lion and snow leopard. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A. 1 only, B. 2 only, C. both 1 and 2, or D. neither 1 nor 2. So please attempt this question and provide your answers in the comments section. The link to our Telegram channel will be pinned in the comments, and you can receive this PDF over there. Download it and you can study later for your own reference. Thank you for watching.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.